Well, welcome everyone, and good morning. Thank you for being here at the Italy Symposium 2018. I believe this is our ninth event, and one thing I want to point out is it's the very first event that was organized by Liferay Italy. As you know, at the beginning of last year, Liferay established a new office, a new team here in Italy. And I do want to recognize that team as the ones who have put this event together. Doriana, Gwenda, Marco, all of the Liferay Italy team. If you could just take a moment and stand up, um, please. Okay, let's give them a round of applause. I am very, very happy to welcome them to the Liferay family and just to see the fruit of their hard work. Um, Now, this year is also a year of transitions, and I think I would be amiss if I were not to also recognize that this event is a result of a vision that one of our longtime partners, SMC, had back in 2010. Before there was a big market or a big community here in Italy, Marco Tessarin approached me and said, "Can we have a symposium in Italy?" And we had our very first event actually in Treviso. And, I think back then we expected maybe 50, 60 people would show up. And we had over 100 people for the very first event. It was something that we organized very quickly, and yet it really helped me to understand that there was a passion and interest in Liferay here in Italy. Um, and I remember that very first event because Liferay, we were still a very quickly growing company. We were still trying to save money. I think it was me, Jorge, and Joseph Shum. We each gave about 2 or 3 talks. And so it was kind of like the Joe, Jorge, and Brian show. And I don't know if the attendees really enjoyed that, but that was kind of the genesis. And to look back on that and to remember that and then to see how far we've come, I think, yeah, it just makes me really happy. So, Marco and Luca, this isn't something I talked to you about, but if you could just stand for a moment and if we could give SMC a round of applause as well. And of course, SMC, they're still very active in the Liferay business, but more importantly in the community. And you're going to be hearing from them during this event as well. Okay, so again, I'm always very happy to be here with the Liferay Italian ecosystem. Thank you for being here. I hope that you get a lot out of this event. This morning, I'm talking about innovation and what is the role that you as IT leaders, as developers, have to play in your companies as you go through digital transformation. Some of the engineers at Liferay, they always, they make fun of me because I'm a high-level, chief executive talking about things like digital transformation. And, it's like, I don't know what that is. It's just the buzzwords. But, let's transform our dinner. Let's transform, our coffee. Let's do coffee transformation. And it is true that it's kind of this funny thing. And especially for you who are technical, maybe you feel like, it's just the thing that the marketing people or the business people say. And I think that that's kind of true in a way because it's such a big topic, right? And I think it's very easy for it to be just staying at this high level and not really having a meaningful impact on our business. And I hope that through this talk, I can show a little bit of how that can be different. The other thing that's probably a little bit irritating about digital transformation is that we always end up talking about Amazon. And Amazon's a great company, but they're worth $1 trillion. They have lots of money, and they're an American company, so of course they're an evil company. And they're trying to set up their colonies all over the world and take everyone's money, right? But I do think it's relevant to talk about them. And one of the things I want to point out about what Amazon is doing today, because we know that they've been very successful already in creating these great experiences online, is that now they're kind of going in reverse. Amazon started as a purely digital company. They were first they were just selling books online, and they innovated by having a really efficient and elevated experience for online book shopping. And they've probably been responsible for putting a lot of companies, even in the US, out of business. We had big companies like Borders, now Barnes and Noble, who are struggling. Um, but now they're going actually in the reverse direction, and they're starting to open physical stores. This is a store called Amazon Go, and you can see in the background that it says just walk out. As long as you have the app open on your phone, you can take whatever you want. You can put it in your cart or even in your pocket, and you can just walk out the store, and Jeff Bezos knows what you bought, and he's going to charge you for it. Um, and this is sort of the next step in their evolution, right? They started out in digital, and now they're transforming the retail experience. So it's kind of scary, kind of crazy that they're doing this, right? Earlier, I believe this year, I'm losing track of the timelines, but they acquired a company called Whole Foods in the U.S. as well. And Whole Foods was known as this premium, all organic provider of groceries. They cater to a very high-end clientele, and Amazon purchased them. And one of the things that Amazon has come to realize is that even as a digital company, they have certain limits. Whether you call it the last mile or something else, it's this idea that even with digital, there's something about being where your customers are in the places where you live, and the immediacy of that relationship. Um, but what Amazon did was they acquired Whole Foods, and then they immediately lowered the prices for this high quality organic groceries. And then they tied it to the Prime membership so that if you're a Prime member, you get even lower prices. And actually, when this announcement was made, I think the stock prices of the top 10 grocers in America dropped by 20%. So very disruptive force in now the retail and grocery market. And then you may have heard about this last one, but Amazon is now thinking about working with Warren Buffett and others to actually go into the healthcare space. And so here's this trend where this digital first company is now going into these very traditional companies and figuring out what they can do to disrupt them. So it's all very alarming, probably a little bit frustrating. And for many of you who are in traditional government, financial services, healthcare, and other industries, you may be wondering, how can we even compete with a company like Amazon? Well, I've prepared another example for you, and this is a company you may not be as familiar with. And they're a company that, in spite of this environment where in the US, retail stores are closing, malls are empty, and a lot of the big brands that have dominated American retail for the last 20 years are going out of business, there is a company that is actually more and more successful. You may have heard of them. It's a very American invention. They're called Costco. And what Costco does is they sell things in bulk. So unlike here in Italy or in any other or European city where you go to the corner market and you pick up like one roll of toilet paper or like maybe four, you get like 48 all at the same time, right? And we have our big SUVs, and you load the back with all of these big bulk items, and then, also American families, we have 7 kids, and we have to feed them all, so this works for us. Um, Costco is a large retailer. They're the second largest retailer after Walmart, and they are bigger than Amazon, right? And as I mentioned, their model is to sell in bulk, and that's good for them because it means that they're turning more sales over. But it's also good for the customer because even for this ketchup, it's almost half the price of what it is for Amazon, right? And they do some other innovative things as well. They have worked with their manufacturers, their providers, to have specialized packaging. So you can see here that this display, which is the actual store, it's actually coming right off of the truck. So whoever made these cashews, they shipped it to the Costco store, and then they took it directly off the truck and into into the warehouse. And they've actually worked with these manufacturers to specialize the packaging to make this possible. And this makes them run very efficiently, which allows them to lower their prices even more. I don't know if you've ever been in a Costco before, but it's basically just one giant space. They only have the best product in each category, and you don't really have to think about it. You just say, if I need ketchup or cashews, I grab what's available from Costco. What else have they done? They've gone to great lengths to minimize the cost of their employee hiring and retention. And so one thing they do is to pay 50% more than other retailers. Getting a job at Costco, being paid $22 an hour, and getting all of the benefits, healthcare, and other things that comes with this is another way to save costs, because ultimately when you keep your employees happy, then you don't have to get new ones and you don't have to retrain them. They're not going to do anything bad. They're going to work hard. They're not going to steal from the company and so forth. So all of this has led to tremendous success for Costco. This is their revenue chart over the last 17 years. And you can see that they've been growing almost every year except after the recession. Now, how do they do this? How do they pay people so well? How do they, kind of have these optimized operations and lower their prices so low and still make money? Well, actually, they've come up with a very innovative business model which relies not on making money from the products, but from the memberships. So actually, on this slide, you can see that at the very top, there's that orange part, and that is the portion of their revenue that comes from the membership fees. But the portion of their profit that comes from the membership fees is actually 75%. So out of that whole bar of white, only a very little of it is actually their profit margin. The bulk of it really comes from the orange part. Because think about it. You charge someone $60 a year to have access to these very low prices. It doesn't cost Costco anything more to let another person through the door, and it's beneficial for them. So the model is optimize your operations to get really low prices. That makes people want to become members. And then if they become members, you're actually making more profit. That leads to more sales, which gives you more leverage with these manufacturers to work with you to lower the prices and optimize those operations. And it's a brilliant model, and it works. And the reason why I bring this up is in the last 5 minutes, I don't think you've heard me mention anything at all about technology, right? So Amazon is doing all this crazy stuff, in-store experiences with the mobile app. Costco is just winning by thinking smarter about how they can please their customers. I have 2 quotes, one from Jeff Bezos and one from the former CEO of Costco. And can you guess which one is which? So in one quote, they say, other retailers think about how they can raise their prices. We think about how we can lower them. We obsess over that. The other quote says that customers are always inherently dissatisfied, and it's up to you to be obsessed with your customer to delight them, because that's going to drive you to invent on their behalf. Well, it doesn't matter, actually. It doesn't matter who said what, because they're both basically saying the same thing. How can we deliver a differentiated experience to the customer? And on the one hand, Amazon is doing it with digital technology, and Costco is doing it without technology, right? So ultimately, it's not about the technology. Now, we're here at a Liferay conference, and you're here, obviously, to learn about tech. But at the same time, you've been thinking maybe that, well, we have been using Liferay for a long time. We upgraded to DXP, or we launched our new mobile app, and yet we still have this customer experience problem, or we're still not seeing it impact our profits or our efficiency. And I want to look into history a little bit to help us understand why, while technology is vitally important to transformation, technology alone cannot make it happen. So let's go back about 150 years to the invention of the light bulb, which happened around 1879, electricity had been available and known for the last 70 years, even before this. But it wasn't until around this time that the technology was being made commercially viable. Thomas Edison was the one who really made the light bulb accessible to the market, and he also created electric power plants, which were available in London and New York. Now, you would think that because the technology was there, that companies would immediately go out and replace things like steam power with electricity. And some of them did, but the reality was that well into the 1920s, 1930s, and even beyond, a lot of people continued to use steam power. In fact, this is a photo of the Queen Street Mill in northern England, and this particular factory was in use with steam power until 1982. And you had a few early adopters back in the 1890s or the turn of the century using electric power, but a lot of them were disappointed. And the reason was that all they did was swap their steam power engine for electricity. They didn't change anything else. And if you understand a little bit about the nature of steam power, you'll realize why just changing the technology would not be enough. So here I have a video of the Queen Street Mill, which has now been turned into a museum, and you could see how it works, where they actually take real coal, they put it into a furnace, they burn it, that gets the water really, really hot, which creates the steam pressure, and then that pressure then turns the motor. And that motor really drives one central main shaft, and that main shaft runs and powers everything in the whole factory. You can see here that everything is connected, everything is running at the same time, right? And the reason they had to design their factories like this is because of the nature of the tech. Because it's a steam power engine, you got to get it cranked up, you got to warm it up, and then you got to run it. And there's no way to have just some things running. It's either all on or all off, right? And because of the technology, you had to have everything closely spaced together, right? So this is what the interior of the factory would look like. Again, you see everything kind of aligned along this shaft. You could see that all of the workers are there at the same time. Because everything is running at the same time, all of your workers have to show up at 8 o'clock, take their lunch break at 12, maybe a half-hour lunch, and then get back to work at 12:30 before calling it an end of the day at 5 p.m., right? And of course, there were other issues with this. One is that it wasn't that safe of a place to work because all the machines are always running, which means that if you had a shoelace that was untied and that got caught in the machinery, then you could actually lose a leg or something like that. So what happens if instead of just thinking about swapping the technology, you actually think through the consequences of what that technology enables you to do? And this is what the smart factory owners started to do maybe 40 to 50 years after the introduction of electricity. So one thing you can do is you can actually reorganize the factory. Instead of having everyone sitting in rows, instead of packing everything tightly together, you can actually say, well, the people who are weaving the cloth and the people who are maybe putting the designs into it, the people who are cutting it, let's actually have them sit together in different groups. Because when you have electric power, you can actually deliver it locally, you could deliver it farther away, and you can actually deliver it independently, right? So now you start to change the way people work. Instead of being sort of dependent on the needs of the steam power engine, you can actually start to orient yourself to the people, right? Another thing that happened because of the switch to electricity is that the nature of the work itself changed. Rather than emphasizing quantity and consistency, the manufacturers started to value things like creativity. So now that people were able to work when they wanted to, and now that they could maybe take breaks to get their creative juices flowing, they could actually create a more interesting product. And this actually had impacts as well on the kinds of people that they would hire and the wages that they would have to pay, right? So taken all together, you can see that this new technology, while it was empowering, it wasn't enough just to use it, but you actually had to allow it to enable a new way of working. And I think we're in a very similar situation today where so much of the tech that is coming at us, the Internet of Things, big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, the cloud, they're just technology, right? And you could keep doing the same thing that you were doing before and then put it on the cloud. Or you can say, well, let's just use big data to still collect customer information in the same way, but I don't know what to do with it, right? It really is the way that you use the technology to change the way you do business that matters. And so as technology leaders, as IT leaders, the question you have to ask yourself is, what is the business problem? What is the thing that my marketing leader, my customer service leader, or my CEO is trying to solve? And how can I, as a person who knows and understands deeply this technology, help him to come up with a better solution? So let me give you a couple of additional examples from the healthcare space. One is a startup in Southern California called Heal. And Heal is able to, instead of requiring patients to come to the hospital to get urgent care or to be seen by a doctor, if you subscribe to their service and you get their mobile app, you can actually have a doctor come to your home within 2 hours for the same or lower cost than it would cost you to go visit the hospital. So in the US, if you have insurance, you usually pay about $30. So it's maybe about 25 euros when you go to the hospital and visit the doctor. Of course, that takes a lot of time and energy and a lot of waiting and, quite frankly, a really bad experience there to do that. With Heal, you're able to have the doctor just come to you. And it's a pretty amazing business model. I think part of it is enabled by the fact that they are a new startup company. But the point I want to make is that part of the reason Heal got started in the first place is because this man, the founder, Nick Desai, who's actually an IT guy, he got a master's in information tech at USC, had a life-changing experience. You see, when his son was 1 year old, he had a chronic disease. And because of this, he and his wife were constantly visiting the hospital. He would go to the emergency room. He would have to wait 4 to 5 hours. He would only have like 5 minutes to talk to the doctor before the doctor had to rush off to do something else. And it was just such a frustrating and really heart-wrenching experience. And I think it was that emotional connection that Nick had with the problem of healthcare in the US that enabled him to really design an amazing solution through Heal. And that's the same thing I think that we have to do as IT leaders. Here's another example. So Mount Sinai Health Group, based in New York, they're using Liferay for a patient portal, which is interesting enough. But the larger context of their story is that they realized that even though as a hospital with doctors, it was beneficial for them, for patients to visit them, because when the patients come to the hospital, they get paid, right? But they realized that that was not aligned with the actual patient outcomes. What they wanted was for the patients to be healthy. And if you want your patients to be healthy, you actually want to keep them out of the hospital, right? So this was an ad they ran in the local news. And they said that if our beds are filled, it means we failed. So Mount Sinai, they partnered with the City of New York. City of New York has a program called the Visiting Nurses Program. And they basically use a lot of different technologies, mobile tech, single sign-on, electronic medical records, patient data, and video conferencing. And what they do is the nurse is able to visit the patient in their home. They're able to video conference in the doctor who's still at the hospital, and then they're able to have the consultation there. So a lot of these patients who the only choice before would be just to go to the emergency room, they're able to just stay in the comfort of their own home and receive top quality care that way. So there's a lot going on there, but I thought the most maybe interesting example for us is that if this is the problem you're solving, if when you visit that patient in their apartment, maybe there's a crying baby next door, maybe there's a soup cooking on the stove, and the nurse kind of forgot their password. If you have some kind of password recovery system that requires, 3 text messages, a phone call, and checking your email, that's going to be a very high stress environment, right? So as an IT leader, I think it's really important for you to have empathy for the people that you're solving and to come up with technical solutions that work for the problem that they are facing. All right, so we are at a Liferay conference, so let's talk about Liferay. And I'm going to say something that may seem counterintuitive, but I believe the most important thing that Liferay can do as a technology provider, as a partner to your transformation, is to get out of the way. You see, I think like any of these technological advances in the past, we've been successful when we are no longer at the forefront of your mind. And all you're thinking about is how you can deliver better customer experience, how you can provide better government services more efficiently, how you can sort of minimize the different touch points that one of your insured has to take in order to fill out a claim. All of these things should not say Liferay, but it should be your customer and your company at the forefront. So we're going to introduce a lot of products to you today, but the thread through all of them is going to be this: how can we get out of the way of your transformation? One of the big announcements that we have that we're very excited about is DXP Cloud. This is an enterprise pass tailored for Liferay DXP, and one of the goals here is that we don't want you as IT leaders or developers to spend a lot of time figuring out environments and elastic licensing and backups and continuous integration and continuous deployment. We want to figure those things out for you so that you can focus on understanding and delivering business value. When you look at our core product, Liferay DXP, which used to be Liferay Portal, we used to simply say, hey, we're a very flexible platform for building your solution. We give you a little bit of everything. We give you great APIs, easy to integrate with. And that's still true, and it's still important because ultimately our platform has to fit your business. But if you look at the new products that we're announcing, like Commerce, we realize that more than ever, we don't have time, you don't have time to figure out some of the basic things like, how do I set up a product catalog? How do I do good checkout? How do I deal with B2B commerce needs? And so we've done a lot more of the work for you to figure that out so that you can get on with your business. And I just want to take a moment to say, by the way, I think Andrea in his opening comments mentioned that this product is made in Italy, and it's true. And I'm, again, very proud of the work that Marco Leo and the team have done on this. It's a beautiful product, and I do encourage you to check it out today. But Liferay Commerce, so we're really trying to understand your needs and deliver them. The same thing you'll see with Analytics Cloud. A lot of us struggle with data and analytics and using it to figure out how to improve the solutions that we build. And again, we're trying to figure that out for you. So those are the products, but I think Liferay as a company, especially for those of you who are in the community, we've done a lot of things that make it hard to use our technology over the years, and we're trying to correct that. I think even last year at the Italy Symposium, I talked about some of the changes that we were making from a community perspective, but we're also announcing and introducing this year Liferay University. So, Liferay is a complex technology, and it's really a lot of different things to figure out. And so with Liferay University, we've introduced a fully online video course. It's going to help developers figure out things like OSGI, but it's also going to help administrators and business users as well. How do you get the most out of Analytics Cloud? How do you use the new Web Experience Management in 7.1 to as a business user, create new landing pages? All of that is available. A lot of the courses are free. And even for the paid courses, if you talk to me or you talk to one of the Liferay leaders, we're always happy to work with you on the pricing there. Because the goal for us is really, we want to make the technology easy for you so that you can get more out of it. Another thing that we're committing to doing this year is to revamp our documentation. So partly because of decisions we made around community and enterprise in the past, our documentation has kind of ended up all over the place. And we realized that that's a really terrible experience for developers. So we are moving toward having just one place for our documentation for the entire Liferay ecosystem, regardless if you're a paying customer, just a member of the community, if you're a partner. Again, we want to make Liferay as easy as possible to use, and you're going to see that. And finally, I want to talk about developer experience and some of the ways that we've changed our philosophy about Liferay. And maybe apologies to Jorge, because I don't know how much of this touches on your topic. But at this event, at this conference, you're going to start to see more of the way that we're changing the way we think about how to make Liferay work with all of the other mainstream technologies out there in the market. So today, around noon, for example, you'll see a talk by Chema Balsas about modern front-end development. And in the past, Liferay did a lot of things like we would create our own front-end framework, or we would say like, yeah, you can use Angular or whatever if you want. We've kind of done some of that for you, but we didn't really make it that easy. And a lot of our energy now is going to go towards making that really, really easy. And Chema's talk is going to go over that. Because we realize that there's this whole world outside of Liferay, believe it or not. And there are so many developers that are doing interesting things with those technologies. And I think the best thing we can do is to work well and work nicely with them. Liferay has a headless platform. So not everyone who uses Liferay is going to do everything in Liferay. You have other systems on the front end and back end that talk with and work with Liferay. And the way to make that easier is to have stronger APIs that give you a first-class experience, whether you are using Liferay's front end or not. And Pablo is going to talk about that today at 3:30. Tomorrow, SMC, they have a talk about the Internet of Things. So again, here's this idea of, how do you make Liferay work in a world where there's so many different devices, so many different systems talking together, and Liferay isn't the only one. And then finally, something very important, very pragmatic, and sometimes very frustrating is the upgrade process. For those of you who have gone from 6.2 to DXP, maybe you've had a hard time with that. And with the new release of 7.1, we've tried as much as possible to make that upgrade process less painful. And Ricardo will be sharing about that today at 12:50. So it's been 100 years since electric power has become mainstream. And now we don't even think twice when we flip on a light switch, when we need to work late at the office to get something done. Electricity is part of the fabric. It's something that we take for granted. And I think if Liferay does our job, we will be like that. We'll be the technology that's part of your fabric, but you don't even have to think twice about it. But if we're doing our job, then we are enabling and empowering you to work harder, longer, and with more passion for the sake of your customers. So I hope you'll see that at the conference today. Thank you again for being here. I'm very excited to say hello and to meet you again, and really look forward to a great event together. Thank you.